Jason Rapert, we met doing our documentary. We went to Arkansas. We interviewed him in uh, the house, with the Senate floor where he's at. Beautiful location. Actually, it was used in, I think, God's Not Dead 2. I think they shot there, but beautiful location. He was so gracious, gave us a lot of time, and just continued a relationship with him and talking to him. And we've been talking about doing some more things together. So many things are going on. I just thought it was interesting. Well, how are they handling it, let's say in a place like Arkansas, and what are the issues and what's happening? And he's been a real lightning rod for so many things. You're going to hear a little bit about that. And one of the things that quotes that he said, that someone had prophesied actually, that how Arkansas goes, so goes the nation. So they used to be a very democratic, liberal in about 2012, and all of a sudden a big shift happened within the House and within the Senate. And so they're passing a lot of pro-life bills, prayer bills for schools and things like that. And so he's going to go over some of it. He's very passionate. He's actually now making a run for lieutenant governor, which if he's elected and Sarah Sanders wins governor, he would be working with her. So I think you'll enjoy it. Hello there. Welcome to Holding the Line, America's Fight for Religious Freedom. And I have a very special guest, a very special friend, senator. He's a state senator in Arkansas, Jason Rapert. Jason, we just appreciate you being here. You are fighting the good fight, it seems, all the time. And so thank you for taking some time out to speak with us.
You bet. It's great to be here with you, and I appreciate you for having me on.
There's so many things that we could talk about with you. And I think I want to talk about some of the things that are more current that are happening in Arkansas. We see that a lot of movement in some of these issues is not happening on the executive level. And so a lot of these states are sort of taking the opportunity to sort of look at their own laws and begin to press some morality into those laws. One that's very, very close to your heart is the whole idea of right to life. What is Arkansas doing right now to preserve human life?
Well, you're exactly right, Troy. And I will say briefly that the reason that so much is happening in the states is because Washington, D.C. is fundamentally broken. Regardless of whether you have universal party control of the apparatus of government, which is occurring right now with the Democrats, or even divided government, so little of substance really seems to happen there, except for continuing to spend money that they don't have. And so the states are really on the cutting edge. And here in Arkansas, we were just named a few months ago the #1 pro-life state in the entire nation. And what we have seen is since the Republicans took over the majority at state government level in 2012, and then elected a Republican governor and swept all of the constitutional offices in 2014, we have passed the largest set of pro-life laws in the history of our state. And it began in 2013 with a heartbeat bill, which we were the very first state in the nation to pass the heartbeat bill. Texas just became the 14th, and we're very happy to see them join the ranks of the heartbeat bill states across the country. And so in Arkansas, we passed just this session over, I think they said now 14 very overt, strong pro-life bills, one of which puts us in a position to be a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade. We passed SB 6. I sponsored this legislation along with State Representative Mary Bentley here in Arkansas, and a supermajority of the legislature supported it. It's the strongest pro-life bill that we've ever passed, and it simply says this: we immediately ban abortion in Arkansas except to save the life of a mother. And we do not include any exceptions except to save the life of a mother. So it is absolutely the strongest pro-life bill ever passed in our state. and is one of the strongest pro-life bills that have passed in any state legislature in the country. As a matter of fact, just a few days ago, the ACLU stated they intend to sue the state of Arkansas when SB 6 becomes effective. It will go into effect approximately 90 days after our recess, which just occurred. And let me be more, blunt about it. The ACLU is not even waiting for it to become effective. They said they're going to file before the bill even becomes effective in Arkansas. And so I guess true to the position which we hold, which is the number one pro-life state in the nation based upon our legislation, passing SB 6 is meant to be an absolute direct frontal challenge to Roe v. Wade. So when that was announced that they wanted to sue us, I said, I want to thank the ACLU for going ahead and putting us in a position to get to the Supreme Court sooner than later, because abortion is a crime against humanity, Troy. We've lost over 60 million little innocent lives in our nation to abortion since 1973. And we believe that by Arkansas and other states joining in a moral outcry, we hope to see the Supreme Court soon overturn Roe v. Wade, if not with this bill, with another one that we put forward.
I just saw that they did accept one with through Mississippi. Is that correct? And so
yes.
it seems to be on the straight way to going right to the Supreme Court. It's going to start with obviously that one, but there's a number of cases right behind it. It seems like a serious challenge. Do you really believe that we have the opportunity to overturn Roe v. Wade?
Of course we do. Over 200 times in the history of our nation, the United States Supreme Court has overturned its own precedent. Go back to the Dred Scott decision with slavery, which was also a crime against humanity. The Supreme Court literally overturned a decision in less than 20 years to address the issue of slavery. Then you have segregation, which had been upheld for the beginning of the country, obviously, and you had it upheld even to the Jim Crow era, and you saw the Supreme Court overturn that precedent.
And those are hotly debated topics, just like abortion.
It is. And here's a key point. There was a book that was written that both Gorsuch and Kavanaugh were cited in before they took positions as justices on the court. And in that book, they were addressing specifically the instances or reasons why the Supreme Court could overturn its own precedent. And one of the reasons cited was this moral outcry. And this is why SB 6 is so important. It's because the court has never dealt with the issue, is abortion a crime against humanity? So even in the case of Mississippi, which, by the way, to your first statement, the Mississippi case is not accidental. We in the states specifically passed 15-week bills in many of the different circuits with the express attempt to get them to look at that, what they call viability of the baby to survive outside a mother's womb. So Mississippi passed a 15-week bill. Arkansas passed a 15-week bill. I was a co-sponsor on it. And Utah passed a 15-week bill. And there could be others, but those are top of mind. Yeah. And so you have good, strong, conservative Christian lawmakers across the country. Many of them are part of our group, the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, where we are passing legislation because we know the states have to stand in the gap for our nation right now because Washington, D.C. is broken.
You know, when Roe v. Wade was passed, you're talking the early 70s, the science that we had at that time and the understanding of what life really was is so much different now, here in 2021. Hopefully now, at least with all of these facts that we have, there's a much better case to stop abortion.
Of course. And you're exactly right. In fact, statistics show that young people today are more pro-life often than their parents. The reason why is they've grown up with the ultrasound pictures posted up on a refrigerator talking about little Susie or little Johnny, their baby brother or sister that's going to be born.
That's true.
And they realize that, yes, this is a life in a mother's womb.
Mhm.
And so I fundamentally believe that abortion in the context of history will be seen as one of the most barbaric and one of the most vile periods in American history.
Mhm.
I predict that, yes, we are going to see Roe v. Wade overturned. It's just a matter of when.
Well, another thing I see going on in Arkansas, taking on another hotly debated topic, is creationism versus evolution. And Arkansas is making some steps to make sure that both are taught in our schools. Tell me how that's going.
Well, that bill was filed by Representative Mary Bentley. The bill did not make it through the session. The last information I had, the bill did not make it out of the Education Committee in the state Senate. And this is a good point for those people that are watching that are Republican voters. You need to make sure that you are electing good, solid Christian lawmakers to office. In many of our states like Arkansas, where we are a deep red state now, most everybody is Republican. You've got a lot of people running on the Republican ticket that don't necessarily have the ability to stand strong and tall on important issues. And we believe that just as the Bible said, God created the heavens and the earth. And we believe that definitely the creation story is one that should be celebrated. In fact, many Christians, as you know, Troy, they do not see scientific evolution, not talking about Darwin itself here, right? But they do see, when you get off into the discussion of this subject, they do see that obviously through science, we have seen some evolution in certain species. But you know what? There's a lot more evidence, and history has proved through the test of time a lot more support for the Bible than, frankly, Darwin's theory, which does not explain a lot of things that we deal with in science.
Yeah, the whole idea of the intelligent design is really, really catching on with a lot of people. And it's amazing the heated response that anytime you want to go after something like evolution and you want to say, well, let's just teach both. And people are like, no, no, no. And it goes all the way back to the first line of the Bible. And people do not want that to be communicated, that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's an affront to so many. And so the opposition and the difficulties that you're having, we're seeing on the state level, many are trying to do it. They're doing their best. I think there was one case that I read, a news article in Arkansas. There was one teacher who was just doing it anyway, and he was coming under fire because he was trying to teach both, and somebody overheard it, and then it became a controversy.
I would encourage your viewers, Troy, if I might say, you know, one of the most interesting meetings that I ever had, I was invited to meet personally with Dr. John Lennox of Oxford University. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Lennox, as you know, is considered to be maybe the strongest Christian apologist within the world of higher academia. He was involved in the God debates, if you remember, with Dawkins. Mm. And it's fascinating to hear Dr. Lennox talk about his perspective. He was a student of C.S. Lewis, and they just put out a movie. If you have not heard about it, Kevin Sorbo is the narrator throughout the movie on the life of Dr. John Lennox. It's called Against the Tides. And I encourage your viewers to go out and take a look at that, because not only is it interesting to hear a little bit about Dr. John Lennox's life and how he came to be this strong Christian apologist within higher academia, but he also talks about the reasons why. And you often see that some of the loudest critics and voices of the existence of God over the years often have recanted in their later years. Mm-hmm. And they realize the problem with that whole subject is science needs to have something that happened to get everything started.
Right.
And they cannot answer that question. The only thing that really makes sense is that God absolutely put this all into motion.
Well, that's going to be a big fight fighting for that opportunity. I'm glad for Mary Bentley, who I've met, who is doing a great job. I see her many times in the news. Well, it seems that any time that Arkansas is doing anything on the state level, or if you're behind it, it always seems to be a lightning rod. And just recently, we saw that you passed the day of prayer for Arkansas schools. And for some reason, that became a big controversy. What was the point and the purpose behind passing that measure?
Well, I did not personally carry that measure personally as the prime sponsor, but obviously I'm always supportive of any opportunity to pray for our schools. And so what you have happening across the country, you have to think back, and it's hard because it's this world where all of this information is just pushing in on everyone so fast. And we often forget some of the fundamentals about our nation. And you go back to the Declaration of Independence, Troy. Our forefathers absolutely made overt references to God in all of our documents. You'll often see all the legal documents say in the year of our Lord, 1700 or 1800 or 1900, whatever the case may be. And so even in the Declaration of Independence, I like to remind people they specifically referred to God 4 different times. They called him our creator. They called him the supreme judge of the world. They called him nature's God, and they also called him divine providence. And so it's only relatively recent in the 20th century, now leading into the 21st, where the secularists, those that want to wipe out any mention of God whatsoever from the vernacular of the people, especially in our public schools, that not only was an atheist or a secular movement, but it was also a communist goal to remove any mention of God. And we have unfortunately seen this creep in and have a tremendous effect upon our schools. So think about it. It was 1962 that the U.S. Supreme Court said you can't have a Bible reading from the Bible to students anymore. Excuse me, it was 1962 was prayer, 1963 was the Bible. So there's 2 instances right there because they wanted to erase the mention and acknowledgement and reverence for God out of our culture. So today, a simple thing as a day of prayer for students, or even a moment of silence for students in many states, is often met with tremendous resistance. And it is because the only way that this nation can be defeated by socialist forces, or might even be overt communist forces, is for them to take away from the people the acknowledgement of God, which gives us liberty and makes us free. And as our founder said, it is God who has given us these rights. No man created them. No man can take them away. And so the Democrats that are putting forward the socialist movement in our country, if they can get us to totally erase God from all of our existence, then they can control the people and have you dependent upon them.
Yeah. It seems that it seems like everything is being attacked. I mean, when you get to a moment of silence and you say, because in Florida, I think they were trying to pass a bill for a moment of silence. And everyone's like, no, we don't want, because we know what they're going to do during that moment of silence. They're going to pray.
Yeah.
You're going, it's a moment of silence. You can do whatever you want during it. You're starting to see that there's a deeper issue here. And I think you hit right on it, that you've got to take away every opportunity for people to express any sort of faith at all. And be it socialist, be it communist, whatever it is, there's an underlying force that seems to be after it. Now, this whole transgender movement right now that's going on, and especially when you think about women's rights, and so many of the people at one time that were saying, you know, the movement for women to sort of protect themselves and the Me Too movement and everything, that they were all sort of on this side to stand up for women's rights. And all of a sudden this transgender thing has come in, and now there's men sort of infringing on women and their opportunity to compete in sports. And the same Me Too people are like, I don't know what side to be on here. What are you doing in Arkansas to protect against some of these things that are happening in high schools mostly?
Well, Arkansas, again, and by the way, for the people of faith that are watching this program today, there many years ago, there was a prayer movement and a prophecy given out about the state of Arkansas that said, as goes Arkansas, so goes the nation. It's very interesting when you think about the heartbeat bill, and we were the very first. Now there are 14 states that have passed the heartbeat bill. And the same thing on this particular issue. Arkansas became the first state in the nation to pass the SAFE Act. And that act said that you cannot, on a minor child in our state, you cannot chemically castrate that child using chemicals and drugs, obviously, to change the sex of that child. It's very, when you think about this, if this had been 20 years ago, we would all have been horrified to know that some child that's 10 years old that goes through a season trying to identify, maybe they're in the early stages of puberty and they get in 12 and 13, and every teenager goes through these times. And so what's happening is these woke liberals are seizing on those moments in children's lives to say, oh, do you feel like more like a little girl or a boy? And then they are literally giving them drugs that begins to change their whole bodies physically. They're trying to change them. And in the worst cases, they could actually go through a surgical procedure to cut off the penis of a young boy and make a girl out of that boy. And in Arkansas, we said, stop. You just can't be doing this. You can't continue to play God with these children. And we said, look, if somebody is going to make a life-altering decision, they should at least be an adult to make that decision for themselves, rather than have somebody push them into something, make a decision that they can never reverse. So in Arkansas, we did pass the bill. Unfortunately, our governor vetoed that bill, and then the Republican legislature overrode that veto, and we now have become the first. Now, there are other states that are taking that up. The other thing that we did is to say transgender athletes cannot compete against girls, okay? So girls compete against girls. That's that we're going to protect them from having their sports taken over by a 6 foot tall, 250-pound man that says, I'm going to be, Brianna today rather than Brian. And it really, to most of us, it seems common sense. But friends, we have got people that have turned common sense on its head in our nation. And it is up to the state legislators, the 7,383 men and women that serve in our state houses, to take a stand. And as you know, we are putting a lot of effort into uniting Christian lawmakers across this country. And people can find more about that at christianlawmakers.com, Troy, because we absolutely know that these issues need good, solid, conservative Christian people to be a voice as we grapple with these horrible things.
Yeah, man, you really do a great job of it, and I can see how many people do look to Arkansas and see how are they doing things. You also, just a little history for people that don't know you, were able to construct and put a 10 Commandments monument right there at the Arkansas State House, and it wasn't the first, but it was still something that gathered a lot of attention. It was set up and built, and then tell us what happened.
Well, obviously, in Arkansas, we have many monuments on our state capitol grounds, but we did not have any monuments that honored the history or the foundation of law. We had monuments to honor firefighters, law enforcement. We had monuments to honor the 1957 Little Rock Nine that brought integration to our state. We had all sorts of monuments, but we didn't have one that honored law. So we decided to erect the 10 Commandments, which is very commonly known and often been cited as one of the historical and moral foundations of law in the Western Hemisphere and around the world. And as you know, the state of Texas has a 10 Commandments monument on its capitol grounds. So does Arizona. So does Colorado. So does Missouri. There are many public grounds that have Ten Commandments monuments, and even the United States Supreme Court has the Ten Commandments etched into the lower left and right doors as you enter and throughout the building in different places. So we passed the Arkansas Ten Commandments Monument. And 2015, it was first erected in 2017. And literally 24 hours after it was erected, a man drove across the state and ran over, filmed himself doing this, running over the monument and destroying it. I vowed to rebuild it within that same 24 hours. We raised all the money again, put security bollards, hopefully to keep that from happening again. And we were able to put that back up in 2018. And as you can imagine, guess what? Who sued us? The American Atheists, the American Humanists, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the ACLU, and the Satanic Temple. All five of them came together in this case, and they've been obviously targeting me in that. That landed me on the front cover of the American Atheist magazine, and they often write nasty things about me being a Christian lawmaker. But I will tell you this, why in the world would we be now in a culture that hates the Ten Commandments, but welcomes people burning down buildings in our inner cities all across this country? In a country that now has BLM and Antifa dragging people out of their vehicles at four-way intersections in these cities, beating them. There have been people die in our nation, want to defund the police. Excuse me, we're in a nation that can't stand that there's a small Ten Commandments monument, but yet you have no problem with burning the U.S. flag, pulling people out of their vehicles, damaging property, burning federal buildings in Portland, Oregon. Look, Troy, I'm about to get in my preach mode here. As you know, I'm an ordained minister. I'm telling you the truth. People must wake up before it is too late in this country. And even though they're going to fight us about the Ten Commandments and other things, I put my trust in God. What can any man do to me? And America is worth fighting for. And that's what I intend to keep doing.
You know, and it's interesting. You kind of wonder, well, what's behind all of this? But the Satanic Temple used that opportunity to drag their own monument over to Arkansas and say, we have a right to place this here. And it got a lot of attention. And there was a lot of strange things happening outside of the Arkansas Capitol that day. But as I watched it, I went, this is a spiritual battle. What's happening. And the Satanic Temple can say, oh, no. We're not spiritual. We're political, or we're trying to make, a humanist case and all this. I go, well, you don't really know who's behind your movement. And that's a spiritual sense. And you see that kind of thing all the time.
Well, it is interesting. And you have to remember, the Bible says that Satan is the father of lies. So these people really can't help themselves. They can't decide, are they political? In fact, the Satanic Temple that basically normalizes Satanism and atheism, they will tell you they don't worship Satan, that they're truly just atheists. But at the same time, they say we're a church. So they really do. They claim to be a church now and claim that if you look on some of their website material. So they really don't know who they are. And they really are just trying to take advantage of the frailties, I think, within our culture. But it's interesting, not only that are they involved in cases relating to monuments. If you look, they have interjected themselves to sue in abortion cases, to invoke themselves into the abortion issue. And they also very much embrace the LGBTQ movement. And so around this country, less people are naive or maybe ignorant of what's happening. You're going to always find the atheists, the Satanists with the Satanic Temple, the LGBTQ movement, and those that like to continue abortion, killing little babies in mothers' wombs. They're the same activists on the issues. It's just a matter of whatever's in front of them. Right. It's the same people that are pursuing that. And I'm telling you, Troy, it's because they don't know God. That light, that battle between light and darkness, darkness has overtaken light in their lives.
Yes.
And this is why we have to be salt and light in our communities, in our states, in our nation. Because I'm telling you, our nation was founded by Judeo-Christian believers. And I believe that it will be saved by Judeo-Christian believers as well.
You know, you're making a run now. You've been a state senator for many years, but you're looking at the opportunity to be a lieutenant governor. And it's you wonder, because the way it seems with a lot of people in those 5 different groups that you talked about, that whatever State Senator Jason Rapert likes, we're going to be opposed to it.
That's
and
right.
You get this opposition. You get all these attacks on your Facebook, your Twitter feeds, everything. You're constantly attacked. And I ask myself, when I see this happen, why would anyone want to get into politics who's a Christian?
Well, I can tell you that for myself, I was raising my family, running my business, and also a bivocational minister, doing ministry, but I ran my business. I was doing what we do in America. I was living the American dream. And then Barack Hussein Obama was elected. And one of the first things that Barack Hussein Obama did is he went to the Middle East and did a tour. And in that tour was that famous moment where it was recounted on our news sites all over the nation. He said, whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation. I remember that sent shivers down my spine when I heard that. In fact, true story, my little girl, she was 8 years old at the time. She looked up at me. We were watching the news at my house in the evening. And she looked up at me. She was wearing glasses. I'll never forget. She looked up at me and said, Dad, can they force us to be Muslims? Now, that's an 8-year-old child. And then you put on top of that the fact that I saw people that were losing faith and confidence in the ability of the American government to maintain the freedoms that we have. And I saw a Democrat Party being a part of that. And look, if people watching this program and this interview today, if you don't hear anything else from me, is that people that don't like America have taken over the Democrat Party. They have. They don't like God, and they really don't like the America that we are. That's why you keep hearing them talk about change. We're going to change this country. We're going to change it. That's because they don't like the United States Constitution. They don't truly value the Bill of Rights that was fought for in the country. They really don't value the America that our founding fathers and some of your own fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers fought for. And we need people to stand up and say, we do love the United States of America. And we do believe, as the Bible says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And so what's happening here, Troy, I will tell you, this is not something you make a decision to get into to see you're going to have fun. We've truly sacrificed in this, and I'm committed to myself that I'm going to see this through because it is too great. What's going on? This nation is now debating that little boys and girls, like you said earlier in the transgender debate, that they could somehow choose to be something different. I said on the floor of the Arkansas Senate, Troy, Dr. John McHugh, Johns Hopkins University, he said, he was the head of their psychiatric department. He said it is scientifically impossible to change the sex of an individual. All they're doing is making a masculinized female, or they're making a feminized male. And why is this even a debate in our nation today? It's because they are confusing the country. They have tried to change family. And if you're a Bible believer in this country, you know Romans chapter 1 says that it is a sin for men to lie with men and women for women. It is a sin. And so what happens? You just had the Lutherans elect their first transgender bishop in our country, joining the Episcopalians in creating an apostate church. This is not biblical. And anyone that preaches that sort of thing from a pulpit is truly an apostate. They have left the tenets of the gospel completely. And so why do we have to get in this? It's because if you don't stand up right now for what the founders created in our nation, and you don't stand up to revere and honor God in this nation, you're going to lose the country. The United States of America will not survive another 20 years of the absolute godlessness that has been taking us away from our foundations. We're $28 trillion in debt. We're drowning in debt. The Bible says, Troy, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little passionate on this. The Bible says that Satan cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. And what is happening? Mm-hmm. Trillions of dollars in debt, trillions of dollars stolen from our nation in the past 2 years in this pandemic that they've talked about. Think about the disruption. And now the Democrats are filling the coffers of Planned Parenthood with hundreds of millions of dollars more. This country is in a fight for our life. The only difference between this and World War II in our nation is you don't hear the sound of guns. I don't want it to get to that. I don't want us to get to the point where people think that that is an option in this country. We need people of common sense to come together and decide America is worth saving. And we think that we can help do that through the group of Christian lawmakers that we put together.
Yeah, that's an amazing group that you've gotten. Tell a little about the history of it, and that it was something that Jefferson, right, had always thought about putting together.
Alexander Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Yes. You know, look, I've been a Christian all my life, and obviously in Arkansas, church is a big part of life here, has been, as it is a lot in what they call the Bible Belt. But we also have some very, very sincere, stout Christian believers all across this nation. And so a few years ago, God began to stir in my heart about a National Association of Christian Lawmakers. And I began to ask the question of some of my friends in Congress, some of my friends that had served in governors. I said, has there ever been one? And nobody could think of the fact that there had ever been one. And so I put forth the vision. I'm a founder and president of NACL, which, by the way, the acronym is the scientific symbol of salt, by the way. And so it's salt and light. So I began to put together a national board of advisors. So Governor Mike Huckabee is on our board, Congressman Bob McEwen, Bishop E.W. Jackson, if you know Bishop Jackson, Andrew Womack of Colorado. I could go on naming. Tony Perkins, Family Research Council, people that are serving on the board. And we now have 23 elected state chairs. And so what happened is we came together in August in Florida of 2020 and had the charter meeting for the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. And in that meeting, we installed 23 elected officials in their respective states as chairs in their states. I believe that we'll be well past 30 when we have our next meeting, which is going to occur in Dallas and Dallas-Fort Worth in conjunction with the Christians United for Israel. We're meeting back to back. And so I believe we're going to have new chairs that will be available then, that we will get them installed. And here's the premise of the organization. We understand that America has been better when we have had more godly leaders. And if you keep electing ungodly leaders, you're going to have ungodly results. And so we have endeavored ourselves to debate, discuss, and promulgate model laws, statutes, and resolutions that will answer some of the biggest questions in our country right now and be explicit that we're doing it from a biblical world view. I will tell you that Tim Barton said, when you think about Alexander Hamilton, he said, and this really charged up all of the people that got started at the charter meeting. He said that Alexander Hamilton, one of our founding fathers, he was George Washington's right arm. Alexander Hamilton wrote a letter to another founding father. And in that letter, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, it would be right and proper for us to form a Christian constitutional society that would do two things: stand up and protect the Christian religion and defend the United States Constitution in America. God gave him that idea. Unfortunately, he died in the famous duel with Aaron Burr. But now in 2020, over 200 years after he wrote that letter, that same vision that Alexander Hamilton got, God spoke it into my heart too, and obviously spoken into many others. And we have founded the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, and not only can elected officials at every single level, local, state, federal, but also supporting members. So people can go out to christianlawmakers.com and they can become a member of our organization as what's called an armor bearer. And we would love you to join with us, because America is worth saving. And we believe it will be good, solid Christian conservatives that do it.
So it's not just state senators to that level, but you're saying a local mayor.
That's
you can
right.
say anybody on a county level. If anybody is involved in the legislative process and they're a Christian, please come and join this organization.
Any elected official. In fact, I just saw the other day a city councilman in Massachusetts actually signed up to be a member of the organization. And so, yes, at any level, we invite you to come. I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. In fact, we're giving a Lifetime Leadership Award to Pastor John Hagee on the night of July the 17th. And I just confirmed former governor, U.S. Senator, and former ambassador for international religious freedom under Donald Trump, Sam Brownback, will be with us at this meeting as well, and many, many others. So go out there and get online, and you'll be able to find a link very soon to that meeting. What
a great organization. Well, Senator Rapert, you're doing so much. We're just always looking to you to sort of see, where's the conservative voice? Where is it we should be moving? You're ahead of many other states and everything. We applaud what you're doing. We know that you're constantly under attack. Your family's under attack. Your family's been threatened. It is all worth it, in the end, as we look back and we see we're serving and we're doing what God has placed us to do. I know that you feel that calling also, and that's why you're doing the amazing job that you're doing. Thank you for being here and being a part of this, and we'll continue to check up on you and how you're making a difference.
Great. Thank you so much, Troy. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us here on Holding the Line.
So after you watch that, you see the amount of pressure that he's been under. In fact, if you look at some of his feeds, if you follow him on everything, sometimes he reposts the angry rhetoric that comes at him. And especially if he posts something about Israel, it blows up. His family has been threatened, had to leave the house. FBI said it was a real threat. When you see all that, why would a Christian want to be in a legislative position, a political position these days, if you're going to be facing that kind of opposition? What do you think would drive someone to do that?